What's up, bros? Welcome to the Men of Mind podcast. I'm Omar Bravo, and this is the podcast all about badass knack bros and their journeys through life. From the bad beats and the lessons learned to the mountaintop successes and advice they'd give their younger selves, this is your chance to get to know these bros better. In this episode, I talk with Ricardo Cortez, Eta Chapter Iota Class number 61 from Santa Clara University. Orale.
What's up, man?
Mr. Cortez, what's happening?
How's it going? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. How you doing?
Doing all right. It's been a while, man. Shoot, I don't think I've seen you since my undergrad, really.
I was actually thinking about it. I wasn't sure. I think maybe I might have been in town one time and you guys were online, or you just crossed, something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. I think maybe even at the nickname barbecue or one of those events. But yeah, it's been...
Now, when did you cross? What year did you cross?
I crossed in 2004.
Okay. Yeah, I was still slightly around, but not too much. So I don't think we've crossed paths much. I think we've crossed paths, but not a whole bunch. So I'm really looking forward to one of the purposes of this podcast was to get to know bros that I just didn't know anything about. So I'm super stoked to get to hear your story. I'm pretty sure that Ruben shouted you out and said that we definitely needed to line up. So yeah. Good deal, man. I'm glad we're able to talk.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we start the same way every time, man. Are you married with kids or single and ready to mingle? Let's get some basics going.
Yeah. So I'm married. I have a daughter, a little 4-year-old daughter. I'm going on 9 years of marriage with my wife. So
good for you.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
Congratulations. And then, so I'm looking in the back and it looks like you've got a lot of San Jose stuff going on. Are you originally from San Jose?
Yeah, born and raised in San Jose. So I actually built this kind of like fake wall here for some interviews I was doing earlier today.
Okay.
Yeah. But born and raised in San Jose, kind of deep in the lowrider culture and community out here. Big collector of random things as well,
And where at in San Jose? San Jose is a big place.
Yeah, so I grew up in Willow Glen.
Okay.
Whatever, it's West San Jose, I guess. And then spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house as well, who were on the east side near Story and McLaughlin area.
Okay. Now, Willow Glen, that's, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not super familiar, but that's a nicer area, right?
Yeah, I would say probably, my parents bought that house back in the 80s. I would say like the early 80s. And back then it was just like an older neighborhood. And since then, I think it's kind of like status and value has gone up, considerably in comparison to the rest of San Jose.
And are your parents still there?
Yeah, they're still in the same house that they bought back then, for, I don't even know how much they bought it for. It wasn't a lot, but they're still there.
It's really wild for me to talk to bros who grew up in San Jose because so few bros stay in San Jose. They're like them and their families and everybody just kind of gets priced out, and it doesn't matter if you're in tech or not. Like it's rough. So lots of bros moving to Sac or Modesto or Watsonville or the surrounding areas. I guess still Bay Area, but it's makes it a big bay.
Yeah, it's tough, man. The market's just nuts out here. But my wife and I are fortunate we were able to buy a house off of 12th Street, so downtown San Jose. But it needs a lot of work, and so I've actually been working on that house for like 3 years now, kind of just clearing all the red tape and getting my hands dirty and kind of remodeling it myself. And eventually we'll get in there, but it's crazy.
How'd your folks land in Willow Glen, in the Bay Area in general? Are you first generation or are they first generation?
So they're first generation. I think my dad might even be second generation by the time he was born. So they were both in the area. My mom went to school out at San Jose State, and my dad was working in the area, kind of like doing like law enforcement security type jobs before he became a police officer. So he actually knows Lisandro.
Okay.
He was like giving Lisandro some pointers back before he got into the academy. But yeah, so when they were looking for houses, it was between East San Jose and West San Jose. and they found this home like in 1981, owned by two old ladies, and they, obviously I think they were the original owners, bought it off of them, and that's where they kind of set up shop.
So you're coming in second generation, maybe third generation, and your mom went to college, so you're second generation college student. That's from my perspective, that's pretty wild.
Yeah,
that's advanced.
Yeah. Especially for that time, and my mom's family is it's interesting that my grandfather was like heavy in the campesino movement, the Chicano movement, working with Cesar Chavez. He didn't go to college, but he was kind of self-taught as an electrician, back in like the 50s and 60s. And then all of my uncles and my mom went to college. It was like that was their thing. And it was, the thing for them to do. So yeah, we were definitely fortunate that tradition, or that, started with them there and carried it down to myself and my siblings.
Yeah, anytime a person goes to college, it's exponentially life changing or game changing for their lineage from there on out. So
right,
that's incredible. How old were you when your dad became a cop?
Shoot, I think I was pretty young. I would say like 4 or 3 years old.
So you grew up, and is he still a cop?
No, he's retired now.
Okay.
He's still active in the community. So he has a nonprofit foundation called Shop with a Cop, where he takes underprivileged youth on shopping sprees during the holiday season. He matches them up with police officers from around the area, and they go on a shopping spree. So he's still very like involved in the law enforcement, community service type of field. He like can't let that go. But yeah, he did it for I think 35 years.
Wow. Yeah. I'm absolutely fascinated by law enforcement. And it was a blast talking to Lisandro, because I was telling him I don't have many, if any, friends who are cops, and with all the tensions going on in our current like socioeconomic political climate, it's always super interesting to see, especially folks who are, I guess I'll call it walking the line between the two communities.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that like for you growing up with your dad being a cop? I mean, because the stereotype would be, okay, well, your dad was super strict and you were never allowed to get in trouble. But I mean, come on now.
Yeah, no, that's pretty true. I would say he was he definitely had like an eagle eye for things, but especially being Chicano, he even knew knew things from that perspective, where the pitfalls could be for children getting involved in gangs. And so anytime he would see me even like write something weird, he'd be like, "What's this?" Or he'd like start questioning me, like, "Who are you hanging around with?" But there was a really interesting turning point that he saw that I was really involved, or not involved, but really interested in lowriders, lowrider culture, lowrider bikes, customizing cars. And he actually bought me my first Street Low magazine, which is kind of like a lowrider magazine. And I read that thing like cover to cover, and it was just now that I think back on it, I was like, man, that's pretty cool that he bought me that, even though he was kind of walking this line, like you said, of trying to play the dad role and be supportive, but also have to watch out for these areas where things could easily go astray by hanging out with the wrong crowd. So
it seems like a super progressive perspective to be able to not stereotype and to be able to separate that, especially being in law enforcement and seeing the negative stereotypes of, let's say, lowrider culture, if you will, and then at the same time still being open-minded enough to be like, look, the two things are not equal, right? It's like lowriders aren't criminals aren't lowriders. There may be some overlap, but there's overlap in all things. So that says a lot about your pops.
Yeah, I mean, they've always been super supportive. It's but yeah, I mean, he laid the hammer down when he had to, and was definitely trying to watch out for his kids. And I get that, especially now that I have a daughter. It's like you want to be on top of everything. You know what I mean? And but yeah, I mean, it's just a major part of of who I am, and I'm glad that he didn't, kind of keep me from exploring that part of myself, because it's definitely gotten to me to where I am today. So,
and so did you stay out of trouble?
I did, yeah. I would say I really didn't get into any kind of crap when I was younger. It was very, I don't know. I would say I was definitely more shy growing up, anyways. So I definitely didn't put myself into situations where I, would think something crazy would happen or anything like that. But yeah, so for the most part, it's been I did stay out of trouble.
How many siblings did you have?
So I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Okay, so you're the oldest of three.
Yeah,
It's a lot of. I'm the youngest, and I oftentimes look at my older siblings and the oldest especially, and just it's admirable, man, because they're being the oldest comes with a lot of privileges and at the same time a ridiculous amount of responsibilities.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's true, man. It's you definitely have to like lead the way, set the path forward, be the one to do the big moves that I guess would help influence your siblings, or you would hope would influence your siblings. So, that being going to college and getting a job right out of college, and then trying to, be the first one to get married. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I did everything almost the old school way, or the traditional way, if you will. I guess per like my family's standards was kind of like what was expected of me. And then as the other siblings started growing up, they kind of had a little bit more freedom to meander a little bit in their journeys, which is cool. Let them do what they need to do to explore and find what they have passions in.
How much younger are your siblings than you?
We're 5 years each. So my younger brother is 5 years, and then my younger sister's 5 years from him.
Wow. So 10 years between you and your sister. That's a big stretch. I'm 10 years from my brother, okay. One of my brothers. And it's a big jump. I mean, you're 17 and they're 7. Like that's
right. Yeah. Yeah. When I was pledging, man, my sister was like, a little pipsqueak. She just I'm wondering what I was doing and why I'm coming home with pins and this and that. But she I think now our relationship is definitely more along the lines of like, I can help her however I can, because I've been there already. She's trying to follow a very similar field to what I'm doing. And so I'm happy to be almost like a mentor in a sense, where it definitely changes the dynamic of like that brother-sister relationship where, you kind of are just coexist together. I definitely feel like I can give back specifically to her because, I'm like, okay, do this, and that. Here's the steps you need to take. Because I've been there. I've already went through that process, right? And I was already successful navigating it, doing X, Y, and Z. And so I was able to kind of pass those along to her. Whether she wants to take that advice or not, that's up to her, right? But at least I can give definitely some better insight than probably anybody else could.
Now, how old are you now?
Gonna be 37.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So she's still in her mid-20s, moving to her later 20s. So that's, I mean, yeah. I had a good time talking with Tennyson, because I guess Tennyson's just about to turn 30, and just thinking about the idea of you spending the majority of your 20s unlearning all the nonsense you learned in high school and junior high, and then 30s really trying to implement that knowledge and kind of set your own path. I think it's interesting that you said that you kind of just followed the formula that your parents had laid out. Are you still on that same path, or have you started to stray?
No, I think now I'm more on a path that is sustainable for me. So I don't know that I necessarily need to change anything up. I mean, I did 10 years with the city of San Jose. I was working as a marketer for the Parks and Rec department. Mm-hmm. And that was a good, safe job. But, at a point, they didn't really want to advance me anymore. So I kind of had to move to something else and take a risk and change up my job. So then I'm back at Santa Clara, which is kind of like full circle for me, doing marketing over there for a center of distinction, which it wasn't called Miller. It's Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship, but it wasn't that when we were in school. It was a Center for Science, Technology, and Society. So very much a similar role, but now I would say the only addition that I have to my journey is actually giving back more to the community. So this year I was selected as a creative ambassador for the city of San Jose to launch some community art programs. And so I've always felt that I needed to be working in service of others. So I went to Bellarmine, so being grown up in Jesuit education, it's like be a man for others, be a man for others, right? Going to Santa Clara, you're being a global citizen for others. Working at the city of San Jose, I'm not working for myself. I'm working for the residents of the city, right? So now I'm doing that again, working at Santa Clara. But now I'm doing this community art program where I'm just giving back to the residents of San Jose. So I think that's a new layer that I have on my, in my journey, but it's definitely a fulfilling layer to my life right now.
I got a whole bunch of questions because that was you covered a lot right there. Yeah. Let's start with where to start? Let's start with 10 years at the same job. That's an insanely long time in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Like 2 years in Silicon Valley is a long time. How'd they manage to staple your feet to the floor?
I really enjoyed the work. But I think that job got really easy for me. So I became really complacent in like showing up at 9, doing the easy work and then leaving at 5 and then just doing that over and over and over. Now that I look back at it, that it flew by for me, but the work that I did really wasn't that, that progressive, I could say, in terms of in terms of challenging myself. I did learn a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. That was an amazing experience for me for those 10 years. I learned how to become a marketer. I didn't major in marketing. I majored in graphic design and fine art. But it taught me everything that I know about marketing, about community engagement, about outreach, about social media, analytics, all that stuff that I would have never learned just as a pure commercial artist. So, I give all the props to San Jose for that. But during those 10 years, I also got my master's degree at San Jose State. So that also kept me at City Hall because it was right across the street. I could literally walk across after work, go to my classes at night, and then get my master's degree. So that also extended my time with the city for like another 3 years, probably more than I would have stayed originally.
Because they helped pay for that too, right?
They paid for a little bit of it, right? And then there was just a lot of convenience. I was like, well, why switch anything up right now and add to a commute, for example, when I can just walk across the street and get home a little bit later at night.
So what'd you get your master's degree in?
I got a master's degree in fine art, again, in digital media.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So artist, pure artist, huh? Was this was this always the lane? When were you from Crayolas on up, or?
I mean, I've always been creative. Like when I was little, I'd always be drawing. I'd always be taking things apart. My parents bought me a lot of like these mechanical toy kits. Like you put them together and then like put a battery and they would start to move, right? Like Tinker Toys, things like that. So I was always super, super creative. And so even when I was online pledging, like I'm the one that designed our class paddle. I like did a bunch of t-shirt designs for NAC back in the day. It was just like something that I fell into because I and really appreciate and embraced. Because originally when I went to Santa Clara, I went in as an engineering major and like completely failed, man. Like I couldn't hang with the math. I couldn't hang with like the physics, all that stuff. I was like, this is just way beyond me. I don't, my brain didn't work like that. So fortunately I got moved into the art program and just really stuck with all the digital art courses. And my main goal was to teach, but then I found out how much teachers make and I was like, this isn't going to cut it. So went back, got my master's, And the rest is history, man. That just really opened my eyes to like really giving me a voice on how to express myself on a more deeper level as an artist.
I got a bunch more questions. You just said a whole bunch. So let's talk about. So you went in as an engineering major.
Yeah.
Which major was it?
It was mechanical engineering.
You were going to do mechanical, okay. And then what year were you in when you decided to switch majors?
I think it was between 03 and 04. So I was freshman to sophomore. So freshman year,
okay. So after your freshman.
Yeah, after my freshman year was when I was like, oh man, I'm getting F's and D's. Like this isn't good, and I'm also pledging on top of that. So I'm like, oh man, this is not, this is not good news here. And then I think I switched over either winter or spring quarter of 04, and then that was it.
What was that conversation like with your folks? Hey, I'm gonna trade in this engineering path for the artist path.
Yeah, that's funny you asked that, because I don't really remember how that conversation went, but I know that it was more like, what are you going to do with art? Like, what career, what are you going to do? Teach? And, that was about it. And I was like, I guess, I mean, I don't really know. I was like, but I like graphic design. I was like, people make careers out of graphic design, those, like, who do you think makes magazines? Who do you think makes billboards and whatnot? My scope of like what designers do was very narrow back then, but yeah. So I was able to convince them, and then they were cool with it after that. But my dad was like, man, you don't have to go to Santa Clara for that. Like, you can go to community college for that. It's like Santa Clara wasn't known for they're still, I don't know if they still are, but they weren't really known for an art degree back then. They were more engineering and law. So he was just like, what the hell? But yeah, now they get it. Now they're like, yeah, he's doing good for himself.
Yeah. So that response was pretty much what I was guessing.
Yeah.
Just, hey, I'm going to trade engineering for art. Oh boy, this is going to be a tough sales pitch to the folks.
Yeah.
But they ended up again being super supportive. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Like my mom's family is super, super creative. One of my uncles, my grandfather's brother, he was like this amazing architectural like renderer. So if you had an idea of like what you wanted something to look like, he could watercolor that for you, like in the blink of an eye. And he actually even designed the Las Vegas welcome sign back in the 50s. He never got credit for it, but he has the watercolors of those like original concepts. And so, there's an interesting whole thing you can unwrap behind that about, making certain people invisible to the success of others. But there's always been this thread of creativity on that side of the family. And my other grandfather was very creative as well, just working with his hands. So I think they probably saw it as like, well, if he's going into art, and we know he's creative, it's like there's something there. There's something in the bloodline that must be coming out at this point. So, I think now they're definitely more supportive than ever. And back then, I think it just took them a little while to see that.
What has been your experience with the cliche of a starving artist?
I don't have experience with that, man. I've always had a double, a duality of working my 9 to 5, which I think is like the traditional old school way of things are supposed to be. But then I have this other part where I need to express myself creatively. I need to have a creative outlet. And so I do that, early in the mornings, like, I'll try and get up by like 4:30 and work out and do some artwork, the weekends, especially commissioned artwork. And so I definitely have a good flow of people that are interested in working with me and creating very unique pieces for either their business or their home, So, I've always had a way to pay the bills, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I know you're like, when I hear your podcast talking to other bros who are just like super entrepreneurial, I'm like, man, that's so admirable. You know what I mean? If there was a way that I could figure out how to do something creative where it's like, I don't know, I'm just making stuff like all day and paying, making what I need to make, it'd be like, that'd be amazing, man. But I'm happy with the position I'm in right now.
I got a lot of thoughts on that. From the perspective that they're so, I don't know, the entrepreneurs, man, it sounds fantastic on in theory and on paper, but these guys work so much more than the 9-to-5ers.
Yeah.
So much more. I work nonstop with entrepreneurs, and it's stress, man. It's responsibility. It's so much. And so I think that so my wife is a ceramic artist. She got a degree in studio art, and she's a potter. And so for being a computer engineer, I know more about art than, most computer engineers should know. Mm-hmm. And that whenever that transition happens, where it goes from being a passion to being a meal ticket, stuff changes.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, hey, I want to make what I want to make, and I also want to make what sells.
Yep.
And finding that sweet spot is it's bliss, but at the same time, what are you compromising? Like everything, you can have anything you want, but what's it going to cost you? What are you going to have to sacrifice in that art? I actually taught a class to at the studio where she worked for a while. It was called the art of self-promotion, how to sell out without selling out. Because there's so much of, well, no, I can't do that because that's not this. It's like, well, do you want to pay your mortgage or not? I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, the entrepreneur play is, I think where I settle is it's just not for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's for some folks who have to do it because they just can't do it any other way. They won't settle for any other way. And then there's a whole bunch of other folks that are playing these games where it's like, hey, I got the 9-to-5, but I got the side hustle. And if the side hustle, I can take so many risks in this side hustle. And if it fails, I'm still okay because I got the 9-to-5.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. The grass isn't always greener, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've kind of just going back to what you said about finding, what sells out, right? I think I've found a really nice niche of people that are seeking something very unique. And as far as I know, I'm the only one that's making that right now, which is kind of like this diamond light that you see back here blinking, reacting to my voice.
I didn't know it was reacting to your voice. I thought there was a short.
Yeah, no. So like if you play music,
I can see it now. No, I can see it now. It's perfectly in sync.
Yeah. It's and that thing's from like the 1970s, right? And so I kind of, during my master's degree, got into this like passion project of recreating these, but with digital components. And so, if you tear that open, that's all analog, like, capacitors and diodes and whatever circuits are in there. But I finally figured out how to turn that into a digital way through using microcomputers or microcontrollers, which I taught myself during my master's degree. And so that became fundamental to my artwork. And so now I can create these, I built my own circuit. Like here's one that I'm working on right here for these kids. It's like in the shape of a little lowrider Impala, right? But I designed this circuit myself. And now I can put these together probably in the matter of a weekend. And then somebody tells me, all right, I need the box to be 4 feet wide. I want a chrome plated logo on there. And, I'll work with a laser cutter to get that cut out of plexiglass, and I'll put it all together for them and paint it in like a flake, red, whatever they want, and then deliver it to them. And, they're super stoked with it. So,
and then it lights up to the music.
It lights up to the music. I have it set up so that it reacts to 3 frequencies. So you have like one for the bass, one for the mids, and one for the highs, and they'll all react accordingly and in sync with the music. And so, there's a really good following that I have on Instagram for this kind of artwork. And that's what I'm actually going to be teaching in that community art program to a bunch of kids over the summer.
That's insane. I love that. That's I think what I love the most is the integration of all the different technologies. I mean, because you're electrical engineering, you're coding, it's physical art, and at the same time, that's That's wild. This program that you're talking about, is this part of your new job, or is this part of just a volunteer?
This is part of the artistic side hustle, I guess. The city had a proposal process, and so I submitted a proposal. I submitted a proposal to the city, and they accepted it. And basically, it was to do this, to teach how to build these to students, to kids, through the course of 10 workshops with the city of San Jose. And so that's so it's basically part volunteer. I'm not making any money off of it. I'm just doing it. It's like completely free program for kids. Just come through, be ready to learn about digital media, new media, and create something cool at the end of it.
And then you got a grant from the city. Is that how it gets funded?
Yeah, so it gets funded with that, and that's basically your budget. And I have well exhausted that budget, but it's all good.
That's fantastic, bro. I can't wait to see that happening. When is that starting? Is it this summer program?
Yeah, so it starts end of May, and then I have about 2 workshops per month through October. And then in October, they're on Saturdays. It's like 4 hours each workshop, and you just come to one workshop, then the next set of kids will come in. And then at the end of that, I want to have like a community art show and car show where we'll show off all of the artwork and invite anyone from the community to come through and check out and kind of watch all these things light up to a bunch of music. That's
fantastic. God, what a cool idea. I love it. Well, and being able to put all of that schooling to work, right? I mean, you talk about what are you going to do with an art degree other than teach? It's like, well, I'm gonna teach, and I'm gonna side hustle, and I'll tell you a quick story. My wife, when I first met her, it was probably a year before we ever started even hanging out or dating. We were getting ready to go to this. We were young adults, and we were meeting in the parking lot with a group of other folks to go to this event. And I was a corporate engineer, and we were sitting on the back trunks in the parking lot, and I asked her, I'm like, hey, so what do you do, right? And she says, oh, I'm a ceramic artist, I'm a potter. And I asked her, is there any truth to that starving artist thing? She pulls this apple out of her backpack, takes a bite. She says, nope. I was like, oh shit, this girl is way too cool for me. I was like, and I just left her alone. A year later, we started talking, but yeah, so that hustle, man, that hustle is everything.
Yep.
Making it happen.
Yeah. It's like the perfect combination of all of my passions that I started to cultivate when I was young, right? And then I would say like Santa Clara gave me the exposure and the opportunity to learn, and then my master's gave me the voice to really give me some self-expression and some tools to use for like my creative outlets. And now this proposal is great because it's like everything that I wanted to do in one package.
Absolutely, especially the part where you get to give back.
Yeah.
I mean, integrating everything. So I teach web and graphic design now, in addition to all of my side hustles. And one of the pieces that I try to instill in folks, I tell students, it's like, we use tech all day long, but this isn't a tech class. And we use art all day long, but this isn't an art class. This is all about communication. All you need to do is figure out what you want to communicate. These are all tools, but if I give you a tool, I can give you a hammer and you can use it to build up or you can use it to tear down. What you need to focus on and figure out is what you're passionate about. What do you want to communicate? Once you find that passion, then the goal is how do I get paid for this? Figure out what your passion is and then figure out how to get paid for it. And it seems like you're, if not already there, you're very much on the precipice to this, like completely blowing up in probably a number of different avenues.
Yeah, I love that analogy, man. It's getting that master's degree really just opened my eyes. I thought I was going to get a degree in master's in graphic design, to be honest, when I signed up for that master's program, but little did I know that it was going to completely change my perspective on fine art, right? And what I can do and how to use tools like code to create artwork, or websites that become art, or video as artwork, right? That it's just like, I don't know, there's such a vast amount of opportunity in the new media type of realm to create artwork that I think is it's still really untapped. But yeah, it's like, what tools can you use? Like, what hammers can you use to create? And what message are you going to create out of those tools?
I love the impact that it has, because oftentimes so much fine art especially is subjective, and it's like, well, I think it means this, and somebody else says I think it means that, and you're both right, you're both wrong, and you know what, it doesn't even matter. Versus the type of stuff you're doing where you're impacting the community and you're exposing these young kids as at the same time that you're contributing to the culture and all through the medium.
Yeah. I think to be honest, I had this conversation earlier where we were talking about like the definition of lowriding, right? And when you think of, I mean, lowriding brings up all kinds of imagery, right? But when you drill down into lowrider art, it's like, what does that bring up to mind? And there's a lot of like, I don't know. I think to say it simply, lowrider art hasn't evolved in a really long time. I think it's always been, the pencil art, it's been airbrushing, it's been, customizing cars and being really expert at painting cars and patterns. It's engraving. But what is it beyond that? You know what I mean? And so I think new media art mixed with lowrider culture is like a whole new definition, a whole new layer to what it means to be a lowrider artist. And so I think that this program and in general is going to give a lot of students a new perspective on even their own definition of what basic art is, and then adding in layers that they can relate to in terms of culture. Hopefully we'll create some new little innovators out of that space. But
from that perspective, it sounds like you're barely starting to scratch the surface. From
my artwork, you think?
Well, just what you just said about this new media and how it's going to contribute to the lowrider culture. It's like you're just getting warmed up.
Yeah. I definitely would say that. I mean, I don't think I haven't come across anybody else that's really working with this media in this space, right? In this art, in this lowrider space. I mean, I have a ton of ideas. There's a lot of people that I talk to on a daily and I'm always bouncing ideas off with. But yeah, I like you said, I think there's just a whole can of worms that we can open up. We just need enough people to do it and really bring a whole new element to the game.
I'm just thinking about the integration. So you're working through the lights and of the boxes, and you're putting those in lowriders. And I think the next, maybe not the next, but another evolution of that is when you start putting screens in there, right? And not necessarily the just a giant TV or whatever, but more so the like the OLED bendable screens that can mold and shape to the different shapes of the car. And then once a screen's in there, like the sky's the limit. You can put anything on there.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I've been messing with this stuff forever, it feels, but I even have like an old TV from the 1960s that I was able to hack and play like new video through it. And that little TV is actually a lowrider accessory that you would put as like a portable TV in your car. You could watch TV while you were driving back in the 70s. But now, like if someone wants to put on an episode of like The Simpsons or whatever, like I can do that. You know what I mean? It's just having the time and having enough people to do that. But yeah, getting those OLEDs in there and kind of seeing how that fits aesthetically with like the body lines of a car or where that fits not naturally on a dashboard or something like that is I think the tools are all there right now. It's just a matter of having enough people out there to have the right ideas and the know-how and the technical know-how of how to implement it.
That's some legit innovation. That is some legit innovation, brother. I love it. I love it. I want to take it back for a minute. Let's go back to, so you went to Bellarmine. And so it was an all boys school, right? And I've talked to a number of former Bellarmine bros, and so it makes sense what would attract you to NAC, right? who specifically were some of the bros that kind of pulled you in and made sure that you weren't a beta?
Yeah, I had a feeling this question was coming. So I was a part of the bridge program.
Okay.
So I was able to have access to Santa Clara 2 weeks before everybody else. It was me and a group of other diverse students, from all over the place living in Graham. And we went to this like luncheon and I saw Gustavo sitting there. And so he flags me down and he's like, "Hey man, come sit with us." Like we're all kicking it. And so I sit down and Abe's at the table too. And then out of nowhere, Oscar Silva walks up and like he gives Abe this incredible like handshake, right? And I'm like awestruck. I'm like, what the hell is that? Like this is like this dope greeting, that they're saying what's up to each other. And I knew all of them from like the Latino Student Union at Bellarmine. And so, I sit down.
That's right. Cause they're all bells, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And so they were all at the same table. They flagged me down to sit down. I see this crazy salutation, and I'm just like, oh, this is really cool. So I just started kicking it with Gustavo, and he's really the one that influenced me and brought me out to the events and introduced me to people. And then eventually brought me into the family. So,
gosh, just hearing those names maybe warms my heart, brother. Like I was I guess I was a year or 2 years. I remember when I met Gustavo and Lisandro in their dorm room in Swig. I remember I was with some other bros and they were like, "Hey, there's a couple guys over here." And they brought me over and I was like, "Oh, who are these white dudes?" And then then it was Lisandro and Gustavo. I was like, "Oh, no, they're not white dudes." That's awesome. Yeah. Gosh, that's great, bro. And then who was in your line?
So it was
let's see if you do better than Tennyson, because Tennyson.
Yeah. I remember everybody. So we were the IOTA class. So we were the high class. The high class. So it was Pepe Alvarez. It was Luis Mendoza, LJ or Luis John Tavares, Tito, and then me. So it was the five of us. And then we had another guy named Sterling. He made it like halfway through and then he dropped out. But so it was the five of you guys.
And were y'all pretty tight? And did you know these guys before pledging, or?
I knew four of them before pledging. Because we were in the bridge program, and then LJ and I went to high school together. Luis and Pepe were both engineering majors in the beginning, and so we had classes together. We were, like I said, we were in the bridge program, so I knew all of them, and then we were obviously rushing at the same time. So then we kind of created a bond right there. Tito was older than us by a year, and so we didn't really know him until we got in line together. But yeah, we were pretty tight, back then. We were always going everywhere together, going on road trips, eating together. Yeah, we were pretty much together all of the time, now that I think about it.
Well, it sounded like when you said when you were in high school, you were pretty shy. And then I'm guessing in Santa Clara, you came out of your shell.
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely just got more into the scene. And it was really thanks to NAC, to be honest. That was really the only reason why. Otherwise, I probably just would have been, I don't know, just in my dorm room doing my homework, whatever, kind of just partying on the weekends or going home on the weekends even, because, I wasn't too far away. But yeah, I mean, I think NAC definitely gave me that social experience that I was looking for in college. But on top of that, that gives you like lifelong friends, like a brotherhood. And I'm really close with, like Alex Tara and Robert Flores, who are NACs after me that I helped bring in. Ruben, he's my compadre. I'm the Nino to his kid. And so,
wow.
There's a lot of just like lifelong friends that are thanks to NAC. You know what I mean?
Oh, dang, I lost my train of thought. You started name dropping and I.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember. What did your parents and specifically your dad think about NAC when you started pledging?
They weren't very happy. They I come home I have a shaved head. I'm in I got this.
You didn't have, you guys didn't have flat tops, or you had, what was the shaved
not from
head?
the beginning. No, we didn't have flat tops till probably the second half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we just had like the fade, the 0 and the 1. So I go home like that. My dad's like, "What the hell? What's up? This is like this cholo haircut, like what are you doing?" And then my mom sees the pin, and she's like, because she went to college and she knew that, what that meant. She's like, "Oh, are you pledging? Like, what are you doing?" And we had to sit down and have a talk. And I'm like, "Hey, it's a group of guys. They're all Latinos. Half of them went to Bellarmine. They're all." It's just like a club, it's cool. We just get together on, we just get together on Fridays, and they, do what they do. But yeah. And then after they eased up on it, and then they understood, and they were like, okay, like these group of guys these are good guys. And, my dad was cool with it after that.
What's some of your favorite memories from your undergrad?
From my undergrad? Oh man.
Or some memory that just sticks out.
Like NAC related or
yeah,
anything?
yeah, NAC related.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know, can we talk about NAC Hill on here?
Well, I mean, we don't have to go into detail, but everybody knows what NAC Hill is, so yeah.
Yeah. That was an amazing experience. I think even though it was difficult, it was the end of it was just like, was so worth it to go through that. That one is probably one I'll like never forget, just because of that entire experience, the way it was set up, the way that it ended was just like incredible.
Who were some of the bros that were there at the end that you remember?
So
obviously you're lying, but
yeah. Lisandro was there. Sal, because he was our pledge master.
Oh, Sal was your pledge master. All right.
Yeah. Gustavo, Abe, they were there. And then the bros from, I guess it was Sonoma.
Sonoma bros, sure.
Sonoma were in there. I don't remember their names, but for sure those 3 guys were definitely there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was cool, man.
Yeah. Did you? Oh, so you pledged your freshman year?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Let's switch into. I know we're already running on the hour. Let's switch into a couple of the funner questions. Okay. Let's start with what's some of the best advice you've ever received?
So there's a couple of them, but one that I actually heard on the radio was that nothing that was ever invented wasn't imagined first. So it's like, it kind of puts into perspective that almost everybody needs an artist at one point or another. So there's a lot of value in that career path, right? And a lot of validation in that. Another one is always, my grandfather always said, never forget where you came from, because that's always going to be a thread throughout your entire life, whether you realize it or not. And so for me, that's always been, when you just sit back and reflect on what you've gone through and where you're at in life and your position, it's like, damn, yeah, you can see these threads all tying back to your foundation, right? So I would say those 2 pieces are pretty good.
I dig it. 5 favorite artists. Could be music, could be paintings, could be authors.
Yeah, I would say, let's see, Zapp and Roger for sure, because they provide a soundtrack to a lot of of good times. Namjoon Paik, who is a Korean American new media artist. So he's kind of like the father of video art. I'm very influenced and inspired by his work. Let's see. I would say Duchamp as an artist was cool because he changed the way that people perceived art. He's the one that took the toilet and put it in a gallery, put it on its side, and said it was a piece of art back in the 1930s. He called it the fountain. And so he he's the one that changed the definition of art. And so I kind of see a lot of parallels between changing the definition of lowrider art and what he did, changing the whole definition of what people considered art at the time. Who else? Snoop is cool. I would put Snoop up there, and Lalo Guerrero. Lalo Guerrero is good. Famous Chicano musician.
Okay, musician, is that Lalo Guerrero?
A Chicano musician, yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah.
That's good, man. You're giving me some homework. I got to go look all this stuff up because there's a bunch that I haven't heard. 5 dinner guests, dead or alive.
5 dinner guests. Both my grandfathers, for sure. I would say Sonny Madrid, the founder of Lowrider Magazine. Namjoon Pike again. I'd bring him back to pick his brain a little bit. And Luis Valdez.
Okay. All right. Rain of Gold.
Yep.
Suit. Yep. Right on. So you've been your entire life right there in the Bay, and not even that much the Greater Bay, like San Jose area. Have you done much traveling?
Not a whole bunch. I think the furthest I've gone to is like the Dominican Republic, been to Mexico, handful of times, but anything like international outside of, North America, no. I've been to, multitude of states, but not anything crazy. Not like you, man, living on a yacht trip or something like that. That's nice.
Yeah. I've done a lot. Well, when you grow up in Utah, you want to see some different things. So yeah. Do you think you'd ever move away from San Jose?
Nah, I love it too much, man. I think it has everything I ever wanted and needed out here, and it's just an active community. As much as a lot of people hate on San Jose just because like, oh, it's boring and it doesn't do this and that like other cities do, or like San Francisco, for example. I just think they're not digging deep enough or looking in the right spaces to really get involved and be engaged with what this city has to offer. Now, there's always room for improvement. But I mean, San Jose has everything for me.
If there was one thing you would change about San Jose, what would it be?
Dude, I think kind of creating something that makes it more of a destination point. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what unique feature that is about San Jose to create it to be like, I want to travel to San Jose to do this, right? That I can't do in other places. Like an example is I went to Austin and they have what is that, like Rainy Street?
6th Street.
What's that?
6th Street.
Is it 6th Street?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 6th Street, and then they also have Rainy, which is like a bunch of houses next to each other that they've converted into this happening like entertainment space. And it's just like, it was so cool. Like, so now I associate Austin with that, like the only place that really has something like that. I'm sure there's other places in the United States that have that, but like if San Jose had something like that, that could really, change the landscape here for them.
As we're coming out of COVID, I feel like things are opening up. What are some of the things that you're most looking forward to going back to normal?
Yeah. I think probably seeing folks that I haven't seen in a long time, that are still reluctant to come out. Whether it be health concerns or they're just concerned for their family's well-being, seeing them again would be great. It's one thing to see them on Zoom, but a whole nother experience to go hang out at a bar and, have a few drinks or whatever. That's probably the main one. But I mean, everything else is relatively kind of coming back. Travel is it's not like prohibited. You just got to wear a mask, got to be safe. Concerts are opening back up like the 1st of May. So, I'm not a big concert person anyways, but yeah, I think seeing people that I haven't seen in a long time.
It's a big deal, man. As tragic as the past 2 years have been, and as much trauma as we've all experienced, and it's going to take a while to like sort through it all, there's been a lot of really amazing things that have also come in, and it's who's in your pod and who's not in your pod, right? It's like, oh man, I've had some jerks in my pod and had to get rid of those guys. There was a lot of figuring out who you're really, really close with. And then the Zoom piece, man, that changed overnight and has opened up stuff like this, where it's like, I don't have to live next door in order to connect. Like I can absolutely make it happen, even though it's virtual. Yeah, the ideas can still pass.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think COVID really, the silver lining on COVID was that it really gave a lot of opportunity for innovation, whether it be, features like Zoom and connecting through Zoom, or creating these new, unique virtual spaces that we were forced to get into, or even self-innovation of like, you had this isolation time where you could really have taken advantage of that and hyper focused on bettering yourself, whether it be engaging in a project that you had been putting off, but now you can because you can't go anywhere, right? So it's like, dude, you're forced to be at home, like get to work, right? Where's you have any hustle that has the ability to come out at this point? So I found myself falling into that a lot, which I'm grateful for, because it definitely, set a couple of other projects that I have in motion that I probably wouldn't have had the time to do otherwise. And working from home is great too. You know what I mean? It's like, I never thought that was going to happen. Like the city of San Jose fought me tooth and nail to work from home. I was like, I can do all this stuff that I'm doing in the office. I can save on commute time and I can go home and do it from my bedroom. You know what I mean? And now finally people are realizing that there's a lot of value in kind of splitting up the work week like that.
I dig it, brother. I dig it. Well, I gotta shout out Ruben for lining us up, because this has been a pleasure. I feel like the creativity and innovation drips out of you, Holmes. Like it's impressive and inspiring. And I hope we can stay in contact and hell, do work on some projects together or whatever it is.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of collaboration that can be done. We're very much in similar spaces. I'm nowhere near as artistic or as creative as you, but I can definitely bring some engineering know-how to it. And
hey man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it would be really cool to see if we can all work on something together. I'm gonna hit you up on that the laser cutting. I'm sure I've got some projects that could be done there for sure.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, let's stay connected, and you're doing a great job here, man. Just getting these stories out there, and this like digital archive is going to be great for future bros that come online too, man, that come into the family and get a little bit of history.
Yeah, I have talked with a whole bunch of bros, and I've had a lot of ideas in my life, but I feel like this is definitely one of the best ideas I've ever had. It's been a blessing in my life. It's been beyond fruitful for me, and then to see the other bros start chatting or talking or reconnecting, or it's been a wonderful avenue just to walk back down. So I appreciate you coming on the show, man. And the final question, always the same. Who should I have on? Who should I have on next? Who do I need to talk to? And or who do you want to hear from that you haven't heard from in a while?
Yeah. Well, I think Alex Hara would be a great guest. He just got his doctorate.
Yeah, I saw that.
So he would be cool. Oscar Silva is like the first doctor that I ever knew, from a personal standpoint. So I think he'd provide some great perspective. And then, if we're going to go outside of Santa Clara, maybe, Damien Trujillo, X-Man would be some cool candidates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so can you help line those up too?
I can. Yeah, I can do that.
All right. Well, then I'm going to hit you up because Damien and X-Men, I mean, that would be amazing, but I definitely am not connected with those guys. So.
Okay. Yeah, I can hook it up. Good.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be in contact. Peace, bro.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yep. Peace. Until next time, bros. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.